Welcome back, everyone. Anthony's joining us again. I'm just kidding.
I know.
Okay, let's go.
What are your comments about the process of getting over trauma, bad life experiences, not for yourself, concerning others, when you see it in others, or if they bring it up?
What would I tell them, or how would I respond to it?
All of it.
All of it? Well, first off, the last thing I'd want to do is patronize someone. So regardless if the situation that they're in or the trauma that they've dealt with and the mindset that they're currently in, I would try my best to offer whatever wisdom I had without crossing that boundary of I know better, which is very hard to do. But I've learned that most people, even myself, you learn through experience rather than being told, you know? There's only so much you can say that will actually resonate with them as far as what they should do about their current situation, but you don't live in their shoes. So I try to steer clear of giving too much advice because it will fall on a deaf ear, and I more so just let them know that regardless of anything, I am there for them. I'm always someone they can talk to. Ball's always in their court. I'm always willing to talk about it, but if they're not, you can't pressure someone into doing it. My words of wisdom would just be self-reflection and to own your pain and to, face it head on. You can't run away from things that happen to you because no matter how much you try to forget about it, it's still there in the back of your mind. You might as well take the situation or whatever happened to you as a kid for what it is, dissect it into, well, this happened, so this is why I respond to this situation now because of what happened. How can I change to be a better person? And that's all I can say about that.
Have you ever had moments where, based on your own learning experience, it's not about being better or knowing more about the other person, but just knowing that a method or a piece of knowledge that has been effective for you, and based on what you're hearing from someone else, like it'll work basically. If you contain a piece of knowledge that will be effective to the other person.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, when you don't have that opportunity, like how do you deal with that? Like, you want to say it and the door's not open, or based on the way the conversation's going, maybe you don't have the articulation either. Sometimes I don't, but it's like on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah.
And you have the answer and you just can't present it. Have you ever been in those moments?
Of course. I mean, who hasn't? But I think timing is everything. If that door slightly opens and you think you can get some kind of, you can give them some kind of guidance, of course I would jump on it. But, I mean, I used to be that person trying to extend myself to everyone, but it's draining. You know what I mean? Like, you do this so much for other people, and it's useless advice because the thing is people do know better, and they do know what's good for them, and they make these choices where they stay in situations or they stay in mindsets that hinder them from becoming their best self or whatever. And telling this person, well, you should be doing this is what worked for me, and like, they may retain some of the information, but at the same time, like, they're going to stick in their ways because they're comfortable and because whatever they're doing is satisfying their desires of the moment. So, I mean, as far as me trying to tell someone, or if I can tell that this person won't want to hear what I have to say, I just don't even bother with it. Because at the end, it's only going to hurt me. Trying to, like, if I'm telling you the same thing over and over, trying to tell you I've been through this, I've done this, I've been through this, I've done this, and you just continuously to do whatever you want to do, you're continuously harming yourself in the long run, I'm the one who's going to be drained, exhausted, mentally, emotionally, and it's just pointless. And I don't want to put myself in a position where I start to resent that person because they continuously come to me with the same problem. And, it goes from me trying to give them advice or, trying to tell them what has worked for me to the point of when they tell me the same story, I'm just like, oh, okay, that sucks. What else can I say because nothing else has resonated with you or you haven't implemented it into your life? So I pick and choose who I give such advice to because I know they'll receive it and I know that they genuinely value my opinion regardless, like instead of the people who just want me to be on their side and tell them, you know what, you're right. They want that validation of you're right, you should be doing this. Like all your excuses are valid. I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to listen to the complaints. And I mean, I will. I'm okay. That's mean to say. I will listen and I will be there for them. But it depends on how far you've abused my relationship.
If a person wants to stay in comfort, and when they verbally share an issue, knowing that there's no intention of fixing it.
Yeah.
Maybe if they wanted validation also, if what they were seeking is not an answer or advice or help. Is it really a problem then?
To them it is.
Is it a problem to somebody that, openly says they have a problem when they know inside that they don't wish to address it? Or listen to who they're telling it to?
They just want to hear themselves speak. They want someone to know what they're going through. And like I said, they want that validation that they're not wrong. Right? And if they don't want to change, you can't change people. For one, everything that I've personally gone through, that I like to become the person that I am today, of course I've heard people give me advice my whole life. Oh, do this because it's important. If you act this way, you'll get this benefit from it, so on and so forth. But nothing has made me change the current behavior. It's not until, these last couple of years where I've done my own self-reflection and I realized like, oh, you know what? I remember when they told me I should do this and I remember that and da-da-da. But like I said, it all falls onto a deaf ear. So I mean, is it pointless that they told me at the time? Yes. Later on in life, after you realize your destructive behavior and that you want to change, you're like, wow, Anthony told me this in 2012. Should have listened to him. But it didn't matter in 2012 what you told me because I was stuck in my ways. I was comfortable enough to not change. And I didn't care what anyone had to say. I just wanted people to know what I was going through. That way I can get the instant validation.
I believe that I want to say two things. Is to be very, very specific concerning myself, by the way. Fixing myself and everything that was ever wrong with me, the only thing that I did on my own was put forth an effort. The literal answer and the literal method and all the words came from books and videos and other people that I've had discussions with. In other words, I want to say that I got the answer and the cure from other minds. If we had to be very, very specific.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that said, I guess my next thing I just wanted to say was the only reason that I insert myself now verbally or in conversations concerning help or advice or whatever is because I feel like I have a responsibility because I took from those books. I took from other people's minds, and that's what saved me. So the only reason I persist is because this knowledge and this experience, it doesn't belong to just me. It wasn't meant to just fix or just cure just me. And I don't want to keep it to myself, especially if I've already used it and I don't need it anymore. So there is a part of me that believes that communication is key and basically interacting with others. But at the same time, it's a very thin line. It's like you said, it's Yeah, the person has to look within and they have to do all the work, but if I had to be specific about it, they have to put in the effort.
So you're
So-
trying to be a mentor.
No. If nowadays, my best advice would be to tell someone else to look within. And the answer, I would say, is within them. But again, it's a thin line. Because I wouldn't say that I gave myself the answers. It's all from other minds.
But that's where we differ. Because I didn't learn the things that I personally went through.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the suppression of all of my emotions. I was so detached from real life for such a long time
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, it took a lot of hardship, a lot of tears, a lot of pain for me to finally, you know, address all these demons, you know? And I didn't get, you know, the luxury of reading these books
Mm-hmm.
to help me look within. Everything was just my subconscious and my awareness and, you know, my past experiences. So that's where we differ. Granted, I agree with you. Of course, I think you should spread it and share it with other people. But at the same time, I'm still in the process of figuring out what kind of person I am when I'm at my best. I'm still dealing with demons. I'm still, you know what I mean? Which we all are. But trying to help someone else implement that into their life, I do it as much as I can, but I will not jeopardize my well-being, you know, mentally by putting too much into it, because I've done it so much in the past where I've spread myself so thin for people, and it's draining, you know. And
I agree.
I like I said, I agree with you, and I definitely do strive to help others, also others who are willing to talk about, you know, hard topics. But I get so emotionally invested and attached, and, you know, I care a lot about people. So for things to constantly be brought to you that devastate you, that is going on with someone else, and you know what could actually help them, and to constantly just deal with the same thing, and they don't want to hear what you have to, well, they'll hear what you have to say, but they're not actually going to do anything about it. It's exhausting.
All I know is I can agree 100% that I've spread myself thin, and I've almost regretted giving such an effort. Because I'm like, dang, why do I feel like crap right now? How did this happen?
Yeah.
So I agree. I want to take things a step further now. I'm not sure where this will go, but you're talking about demons, right?
Mm-hmm.
As far as I can tell, I've done a lot of damage to myself, but my greatest demons and the worst life experiences I've ever been through, some of the most devastating, there's always someone else involved. And I'm not saying I'm a victim, I'm just saying that those are really traumatic and those are really bad. So my question was, when you're talking about demons, do you think that a lot of the demons that exist, I guess this is to you, within you, is it your own doing? Or is it based on an experience with someone else? Because I think, for me, the biggest demons I've ever had was someone else doing stuff to me. Well, I mean, I'm not trying to pin the blame on them. It's just overall, an overall experience with someone else involved. Those were the most heartbreaking and heart-wrenching moments.
Okay, so I agree with you, but the thing about it is a lot of those demons that I've acquired over the years are from things that I've observed and that I went through as a kid, right? So those things were out of my control. You know, my environment, parents, school, like friends, everything like that. Those things were out of my control. But from all the pain and the trauma and, you know, these life experiences that at the time I didn't even realize were out of the normal, because that's all I knew, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those things have been detrimental to me as an adult, or, you know, as a growing human. they've over time become behavioral problems, authority issues, lack of respect for not people, but just it's been hard, making meaningful connections with people, being a good friend, things like that have, they come from what I've observed when I was a kid. So are they self-inflicted demons? Not technically, but the guilt and the shame and, not feeling worthy or, not feeling like I've earned my place, it comes from the things I was told all the time when I was a kid, and that stays with you because you don't reflect when you're young. You're just living. You're delirious. You're happy. You're just... Life is not anything but playtime. For the most part, not for everybody, Some people do recognize trauma when you're younger and, it's different for everyone, but it's taken me a long time to pinpoint why I am the way I am, but it does stem back to my childhood. So even though it was not exactly my fault that they're there, I have to make a conscious effort to know, well, this has happened to me when I was younger. I don't want it to be a part of my personality anymore, so I have to make a change. So the demons I currently have, they are from childhood trauma, but it doesn't mean I have to stay in this mindset. Always have to grow. You always have to be a better person. And if I want the results if I want the life that I want, I'm going to have to make a conscious effort to be a better person and to respond to things a certain way and treat people the way I want to be treated and yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean?
Let me see if I got this right. Just learned something. So it's possible that a bad life experience, including someone else, gave birth to a demon. That's fine. Okay. And the cause is because of someone else, but basically the demon has become you the moment it affects your life, your views, and your actions.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
You never thought about it like that? How would you think of demons?
Well, I've never spent the time to separate a demon that was caused by someone else to me and the ones that I've done to myself.
Yeah. I
didn't realize that it could turn into that.
Yeah. Okay, for instance,
I get it.
My mom, she...
Sure you want to...
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. My mom was very passive-aggressive. She was a pushover. She did not fight for things that she knew she deserved, as far as like in the workplace, because she would tell me about things, even though I was very young. And that I carried that with me into my adult life. I've seen friends of my mom, screw her over, and my mom did nothing about it. Not even a matter of like being violent or anything like that, just not speaking up for herself. She just, for instance, we moved in with a friend when I was really young and it was all of us kids. That friend pretty much screwed my mom over something with rent. Instead of my mom confronting her, being, you know what I mean? Confrontation doesn't always have to be bad, but just to be like, look, this and that, I paid you the rent. She just packed us up and we left. So I just learned behavior. So instead of me learning, a constructive way to communicate with someone, whenever I had an issue with friends, I would just sweep it under the rug and we would just wait till it like simmered down. So I took that into my, my teenage friendships, my adult life, where everything was just kind of swept under the rug. I became really passive aggressive and I didn't know how to communicate. That's a demon. That's why communication plays into my life now, because it took me a long time to be able to tell someone, I was wrong, this is what I didn't like that you did, let's work on it. For me, it was like if someone did something I didn't like, we're not friends. That was it. Mm-hmm. And you can't write people off like that. Or, if someone does something that you don't like, but you don't voice it, how are they supposed to know or change, or at least around, in company, if you don't voice it, if you don't say anything, they can't read your mind, you know. So I when I was in high school, I was very, I don't want to say bipolar, but little things would make me snap, and it would irk my nerves, and it would just kind of be like, Sam's having a tantrum, because I was just such a bitch, pretty much. So I've learned that if something bothers you, you need to speak on it. And I learned that on my own because of things that I've observed when I was a kid. And that's a demon. I would call it a demon because I had to overcome it. But that's something I learned through, you know, seeing my mom not take a stand for anything. And then telling me, you know, when I had a problem with my friends, just to get over it, because you guys are going to be friends next week anyways. So then I learned when people did things to me that were wrong, we're going to be friends anyways, sweep it under the rug. And that's not a healthy way to have friendships or relationships. So, yeah. Was that a good example?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You put the mirror to my face. Currently, I think it's cool as hell to eat as much as I can, just so that I don't bother anybody else. Because when you take into consideration that everyone's at a different stage mentally, and that everyone's unique in their own right also, and that you can never control another person regardless,
Yeah.
those facts hold me back from standing up for myself. Till this day. And in fact, in a sick way, I'm proud of how much that I can eat that someone else puts in front of me.
Yeah.
The way that I justify it is, all I know is that I have a pretty good handle, which I've put forth the effort to face life in such a way that not too many things bother me anymore. So I guess simply because I think I have that ability, I'm like, well, why don't I just take all the heat if I can handle it?
Yeah.
Out of respect for another person, where communication is not always the case, because, I mean, I'm down for communication, but when it's not the case, I'll just let them be right. So the thing is, I'll tell myself, look, dude, you know you're not wrong. And you're being told you're wrong, or in this situation, you know, but if you don't, if by you showing that, or if I have to verbally tell someone else, like, hey, this is the way it is, and in fact, you're not right, it's not worth it, because I know to myself that I'm not necessarily wrong in that situation.
Yeah. It's
not worth whatever effect it'll have. And this is where I'm wrong right here, is I assume there'll be conflict, and I assume there'll be a not a fight, but a verbal fight, like a disagreement.
Yeah.
So now I'm telling myself, dude, you have a choice. Like, either you just keep it to yourself that you know you're right and keep things cool, or you stand up for yourself. So then I ask myself, well, what does that even mean? What does that matter to you? Is it pride, your ego? Like, what does it matter if you stand up for yourself? You don't need to. Then this goes on to a whole nother area, which this is not even related anymore, but this is the way my mind works.
Mm-hmm.
What the do you care to control or to tell this person that you're right? You're not going to control the way they perceive you anyways. It's not worth the fight. It's not worth the hassle. It's not worth it.
It's not worth the headache.
It's not worth the headache. So that's why when I'm in a situation where either I get put down even just a little bit, or I get blamed for something, or if I disagree, I won't voice it. I won't. And I want to say something pretty mean. What really irks me is when I'm around other people and I hear other people talking about these stories where they stood up to someone or they put someone else down, and in the process, you know, they're saying they stood up for themselves and they play it off like it's heroic. I think it's sickening. Sorry to say, you know, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but you know, I hear like one person telling a group of 3 how they put someone down because, you know, the other person thought they were wrong. Like, I can't stand that, to be honest. So it's something within me. I mean, I wouldn't expect everyone to see things this way. Just sharing a thought.
I used to be like that because I automatically assumed that it would be a conflict. you know, and that came, like I said, from viewing my mom not standing up for herself. So I took that into account where I was like, okay, is it worth talking about? Am I just in my feelings? You know, I was always the bigger person. You know, I always held everything in, and I was very tough, you know, which I still would like to consider myself extremely strong. But I've learned, obviously, like we said, through communicating, that voicing something that bothers you, if you do it in a way that you know the person will respond, then, you know, it's out of your control. If they want to respond in a way, you know, where it just gets hostile and they don't want to actually hear what you have to say, because I never really approach people. Like, if I have an issue with someone and it's worth, you know, you have to make sure it's worth even bringing up. Is this person even, like, do they matter to me? Is it worth bringing up? Is it something petty? Or is it something that I really want to talk about? Because if it doesn't change, I don't know how we can continue a friendship. So if it's worth bringing up, I will definitely articulate it in a way that I know the specific person is going to respond to. And if they, you know, it results in, like, hostility or, you know, miscommunication, or, like, they just don't want to hear it, then was it even worth having a friendship with that person anyways? Because I do everything in my power to voice how I feel, and in a very respectful way. Like, I didn't like that you did this, you know, because of this and that. Do you think, and I'll give them, like, an alternative. Like, do you think maybe we could do it this way, or whatever the case may be? So if it gets to the point where they don't even want to hear it, why even be friends with that person? Because what if a serious thing comes along, right? Something very serious, and they just don't take your feelings or your opinion into consideration because they're so in their right. So, I mean, regardless of how small it is, I think boundaries and setting up those lines of, like, you know, this is how I want things to be. If you want to remain in my life, like, not threatening them, not giving ultimatums, but, like, you know, this is what I expect from a friendship, and one of those expectations come with communicating when there's a problem. So I did that for years, and honestly, it did a lot of harm to, like, me personally. I feel like I was always angry, and I was always resentful, and because I would do so much for these people, and then, like, these little things they would do would bother me, which shouldn't have bothered me. And then very grand things, horrible things they would say or do had no effect on me because I knew they were untrue, so it didn't matter to me. But
all I know is that between, you know, communication is a two-way street. So you're talking about, I'm not saying you, I'm just talking out loud, two people that probably they have to be at one with themselves, face all their demons, they have to be able to articulate. There's so much behind communication. It's such a big process, and even if one person has it all down, the other doesn't. Jeez. So I think this is why, talking about earlier, why people are more willing to resort to small talk. It's a lot of work. So I wanted to say the only one thing that helped me concerning, like, based off what you said, take all the shit from someone else is, this is a very recent revelation too. It's the subjective reality. It's like, or the universe. If I no longer view myself as the center point of my life, and I see myself as part of a bigger scheme or part of the universe, well, essentially then I see myself in you. Mm-hmm. So now, with this new idea that it's not two different entities, and just let me give a little more feedback. When I interact with someone else, I feel like there's a responsibility, and I know that there's a real influence and effect that's going to take place based on how I present myself and based off everything I do when interacting with another person. With that said, I mean, we'll take it back to the golden rule, treating others the way you want to be treated. So essentially, when I see a potential disagreement with someone else, it's almost like I'm talking to myself. So in that sense, that's why I'm willing to take some headache, to eat some shit, and to stretch myself thin sometimes. I suppose, like, realistically, I act upon a lot of the stuff you just said, and I'm not disagreeing. This is something I'm trying to work towards in the future.
Yeah.
which is to say, oh, everyone's worth it, everyone's worth an effort, everyone has something about them that's worth keeping the friendship, when realistically right now I can't say that I believe that 100%. I'll admit that. I wish I can work towards getting to 100%, but yeah, there's definitely people where I have boundaries, limitations, where as much as I want to be myself and be nice and all this stuff, so there's a certain chemistry that will take place that I don't want to be a part of. Mm-hmm. So now another thing that I don't verbally state is I used to say, dude, you're a bad guy if you're going to run away from something like this. Like, some people are worth it. All I want to say is that it doesn't hurt as much to walk away now from those situations, because even if this person is me and I'm looking at it that way, well, within myself, within my own thoughts, I put things to the side. And there are certain dark places where I'm like, well, no, you can't go there. Yeah. So you're not going to go there. So it makes me feel better about walking away from certain people, because I'm like, that's how you would treat yourself. If you see something that's like a trigger, or, something that you don't like, even within myself, in my own head, I won't be there too long. Yeah. So I'll say one more thing.
Okay, go ahead while I collect my thoughts.
I tolerate a lot of BS, and I choose to take the brunt of it without telling the other person, because I have accepted that is simply the way that I am. We talk about self-reflection. It just so happens that that's the kind of stuff that I'm into. Yeah. I'm into keeping the peace, keeping it cool. I'm not a fan of problems. Non-violent. Like, that's just naturally me. Yeah. And I've accepted that's just my role, and for the beauty of everyone else and who they are, like, if that's a part of their role, then so be it. I mean, the world would be pretty bland if we were all the same. So that's another mindset, or like a viewpoint that I put in my head before I question this particular scenario. It's like, dude, it's just who you are. Everyone is who they are, and there's beauty in this diversity, so just be, that's who you are.
I think you still have to stand up for yourself, though, in certain situations, in a way that's constructive, or like,
I agree with you that it's definitely true. At the moment, I do not wish to put forth an effort. Yeah, okay. But
eventually,
I'm not going to say I'm perfect and that this is not a good idea. It's probably a great idea.
Oh, you know what I was going to comment on? I remembered. So, how you said you want to be 100% when speaking to people, that they're worth it.
I wanted to say that there's 100% of people worth it. Like, everyone's worth the effort.
Yeah. So, to go on from that, I used to be that way when I was younger, where I would, even if they did me wrong or I had an issue with them, I would, they're worth the friendship. Like, I would, how I said I would write people off like that, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd write them off, but not forever. Yeah. I would write them off, and I'd be so done with this person, and then, we all went to school together. This is high school. 2 days later, whatever. It wasn't that big of a deal. I always, dismissed how I felt, and, I was really detached from my emotions. So I was just kind of like, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. And I would just drop whatever the situation was. And I took that with me into my adult life, where I always wanted to be there for people. And I'm like, if they did something wrong, I just kind of would keep, have a short amount of distance, but then I'd always let them back in my life. And even a friend of mine, a year ago, we were having a conversation, and he said that I'm too forgiving. And I've learned that no matter how much the person is worth it, because I do think everyone in life is worth saving, or worth being conscious and aware of who they are, and having this happiness of just facing their past. I think everyone's worth it. However, you have to take yourself out of the equation, because you're not always supposed to be the one to implement it into their life or be there when they have that revelation. And that was really hard for me to grasp, because I always wanted to be that person where if I wasn't the cause of you becoming woke, for whatever, however you want to word it, if I wasn't the cause of it, I wanted to be there when you experienced that growth. Because it's beautiful to see people, come into who they are. So I always wanted to be a part of everyone's life, everyone's growth. And not everyone is good for you. Not saying they're horrible for other people, but whatever the turmoil is in the friendship, the relationship, it's okay to walk away from toxic people. It's okay to get rid of toxic behavior personally. It's okay to separate yourself from family that do nothing but, badger you and ridicule you and whatever. So as far as it goes, I do think people are 100% worth, the effort and everything, but it's not always you that is going to help them get there. And that took me a long time to be able to, because, once you once you separate yourself from someone, as much as you miss them, I feel more so you miss the memories and the fun and the things you did together, so it makes you more forgiving. At least in my case, that's what happens. So instead of, addressing what was wrong, I was just kind of like, well, I miss you so much, let's just start over. And some people are just not meant to, you just don't flow well with everybody. And I've learned that the hard way, and I've really tried with certain friends to make things work because I just loved them as a person. I just don't think we were meant to mesh. And it sucks though, because, recently I lost 3 friends, 2 of which I actually felt like I was grieving. I did feel like I was grieving, and it took a toll on me emotionally. I felt really drained and tired for quite a while. And it's just knowing I'm not going to have that same friendship, and it's not going to be resolved over a simple conversation. And, if I wanted it, it's a matter if they wanted it too. And even then, is it worth having it? Because the way that the friendship was already going, it's too much baggage at this point. They're not meant to be in your life. So confrontation is not always hostile or violent, and I strongly encourage it as far as, getting your point across, being very respectful in the way that you speak. That way you can say how you feel and they'll respond to it. And that's my 2 cents. I think that's about it.
Oh, you just helped me realize that there's only so much
you can do,
and you can't. There's limitations, and you shouldn't have to. Not that you shouldn't have to, but just they're just there.
Yeah.
You can't do everything. Anything.
Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow.
Part of the reason it makes it hard, it's a hard pill to swallow because this is all fantasy for me. There's this fantasy, realistically, come on, we're all humans. We all know what suffering is, and we all know what happiness is. Those core things are they're so universal.
Yeah. That
you can't just say, oh, just because your specific life experiences is different, I don't understand you, and this. I feel like there's so much
similarities.
Yes, that's relative, or at least I can see it, that there is a way. That's the bottom line. I'm under the impression that there is a way, but that's fine. I am slowly accepting this fact too, that there's limitations and borders.
And like you mentioned earlier, it comes with whatever mental state they're at. If they're willing to accept it, if they want to even grow or, look within. Because that's the first step, regardless of anything you have to offer, because you could be offering someone the world and they'll still be ungrateful. You just have to pick and choose the ones that are willing, that are worth it, that want your advice and appreciate it.
The only thing I tell myself at that point was, at least I tried. I would still have rather have failed this miserably and not be misunderstood or even be hated. I would rather be that for trying than not trying. And again, I mentioned this earlier. At this point, I just said that's just my nature. So,
I don't know. I think maybe just later on in life, it just drains you to the point where you just don't care anymore. Which I hope never happens. And I'm not saying that's how I feel, but I feel like that's why a lot of people just, stay on autopilot for so long.
Oh, my simple answer was, from this day forth, with all this new insight, I'm still willing to do so. I'll basically stretch myself to the point to where I can't tolerate it anymore, and then I'll stop. See, before...
How long is that stretch, though? It depends on the person.
It's a case-by-case thing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I have some good confidence that I can stretch pretty freaking thin to eat a lot of crap. But anyway, again, the only difference between now and then is that I'll actually be willing to stop at the point where it starts to hurt
Hinder
me.
you, yeah.
Or hinder me in any way. Whereas before I was just relentless. I didn't want to give up because of what I said about those universal truths and that there's always a way.
Which there is, but it's not always going to be with you present.
I like that. This is something new.
Yeah.